Well, hey everybody, this is Jillian from Premiere Plus Realty, and I am joined today by our preferred mortgage partner and friend, Scott DiGregorio of Team DiGregorio at Neo Home Loans, which is now part of Better.com, which is an incredible partnership that I know that we've benefited from greatly. And so we thought that we could talk to you about what's happening with interest rates right now. As of today that when we're filming, it's June 11th, 2026. We have a lot of things happening overseas and in the world markets that could affect your ability to get the home that you want to get into, or if you're a real estate professional, to help you get your buyers what they want. So Scott's the expert, and we want to just see what his perspective is on all of that. So thanks for being here, Scott.
Jillian, thanks for having me. I'm super excited to be here.
So when we were just talking about what we should talk about, we mentioned the conflict overseas, things that are going on in Iran. So you said that might be affecting what buyers are able to do in terms of getting the rate that they want and how that's affecting the markets. Would you expand on that a little?
Yeah, I mean, the arch enemy of low mortgage rates is high inflation. So the reason why interest rates have been what they've been since COVID is because inflation was high. And the most inflationary thing that can happen economically is higher oil prices. Because if you think about it, everything that is made, shipped, or purchased utilizes oil in some way, shape, or form. So if that base price of oil goes up, then everything goes up with it, which is the definition of inflation. In fact, we've had some inflation readings just this week where we have the highest inflation that we've had in 3 years. So as is always the case, Julie, as inflation goes up, rates go up with it, and vice versa, right? So since this situation in Iran has occurred and the Strait of Hormuz is closed down and the oil production, or the oil flow, I should say, has stopped, it's been, it's bumped interest rates anywhere from 0.5% to 0.75%. So it's had a pretty significant impact on things. And, what's interesting is day to day, and this is something that Edgardo and I on the team are utilizing very well. Day to day, depending on the headline, mortgage rates are moving, right? When the headlines are that this thing is coming to an end, all of a sudden rates are back down to where they were before it happened. Mm-hmm. And, when they say it's falling apart and it's going to go on longer, then, rates jump up. So what we've been doing with our clients is really putting together a really solid locking strategy where we could kind of time the dips in the rates. And we've just, knock on wood, we've been very blessed to do that very consistently. Ed and I have spent our entire careers studying the markets and the bond markets and the economic, the economic factors that impact it. So we've really been able to consistently save our clients that 0.25% frequently, and made a big difference there. So that's been working well for us. At some point, this situation will end, and there's a lot of mixed opinions on how quickly that impacts things. There are some that say that things are going to get better overnight, and there's others that say that regardless of what happens, this will not be better until Q1 of next year. I'm not quite sure what the reality is, because it's not like I can go back and look at the last 10 times this has happened historically, because it hasn't. So we're going to wait and see kind of pattern with that.
I'm interested in your perspective on our agents and our agents who deal in cash buyers primarily, and if you happen to be watching, if you're a predominantly cash buyer and you're looking for a bit of real estate here in Southwest Florida, how do you think the sentiment, or I should say the buyer confidence, has been regarding those conflicts, and in light of those conflicts and what's happening in the world markets? How do you think that affects those cash buyers?
It affects everybody. And I think what you touched on with the confidence is really the key. There's two pieces of this, in my opinion, Jillian. I think that uncertainty breeds uncertainty. And whenever there's situations like this, COVID, on and on, it breeds uncertainty, and people tend to adopt more of a scarcity mindset. There's also a thing out there called the wealth effect. And the wealth effect says that when the average American's 401k is going up in value, they're more willing to spend. Even though there's no real impact in their day-to-day, they just feel wealthier, so they spend differently. And this has been studied broadly economically, where people go to different restaurants and they buy different clothes and on and on and on, and they pull the trigger on big purchases like buying homes. So I think that that's a big component of things. And as we know, I mean, the stock market is just fluctuating wildly day to day on the same news headlines that interest rates are responding to. It's going to end, it's not. It's going to end, it's not. But I think here's the takeaway. Everybody, and this is easier said than done, just to preface this, everybody talks about the uncertainty amongst the buyers, but the reality is there's also the same uncertainty amongst sellers.
Yeah.
And the savvy buyers recognize that, and they're taking action and maybe taking advantage is the wrong word, but they're seizing the opportunity that's caused by the fearful sellers. And I think that that's a really good message for us and our agents, and the agents to kind of spread out there, because, if you never take any risk, you end up at risk financially.
Mm-hmm.
And I think that that's the mindset that I would have if I was actively buying in this market.
So when you say that the sellers are experiencing like the lack of confidence and the buyers could maybe use that as an upper hand, are you describing that you think sellers are thinking they're not going to get the value out of their property that they want in selling, or because, sellers become buyers, that the sellers are a little more hesitant to pull the trigger and, go under contract for an amount, because that means that they're going to be compelled to purchase a property at the current interest rates? What do you mean by that seller hesitation there?
I think that, I speak to sellers, friends of mine and whatnot, and they're like, the market's just gonna crash, so I better get what I can get for my property and move on. And I mean, it's a different podcast episode, but I could talk for hours as to why the market's not going to have a 2008 crash. But if you have a seller with that mindset, they're going to negotiate more aggressively. Like the opportunity with the right agent and the right scripting and everything else, there's an opportunity to get that house below market. I just closed on a deal with one of your agents, Jillian, and it was over a $3 million deal, but the home appraised for $350,000 above contract price.
No kidding.
And I'm consistently seeing appraisals now come in above purchase price on smaller deals, 10 grand, 15 grand, 20 grand, wow. Which, I mean, that's a real, and by the way, you and I both know appraisers don't like appraising above contract price. So, if it's coming in, a lot of times that means that it couldn't have come in lower. So a lot of the buyers that do have the courage to seize this opportunity are able to see this with real dollars, where they're walking into instant equity, taking advantage of maybe some fear that the sellers have that'll prompt the seller to maybe accept a lower price than they would have otherwise.
So let's talk to the agents for just a minute, particularly buyers agents. So, a lot of times we look at our showing time data, which is the software that we use to track when one of our agents uses that system to show a property. And a lot of times we can almost time our showing time data, our home showings, dependent upon market news, like headlines. Yep. Headlines are favorable. A lot of buyers want to go see properties on a Saturday afternoon. And the opposite effect is true. Sure. So it's interesting to look at the data and then try to infer what some of our agents and buyers are thinking. But from your perspective, obviously we're talking to our agents every day, but I'm curious when you're on the other end of the phone and you're trying to work out a deal with an agent and a buyer, what is it that they're saying right now? Are they in a wait and see? How are you sort of creatively working their situation in order to get them the price that they want for the rate that makes sense for them?
Yeah, there's a couple things on that. It's a great question. The one thing that I try to convey to buyers in any market is that making a 10, 20, 30-year decision on what's happening on Tuesday
Yeah,
just generally doesn't work out well, right? Like
not a good idea.
there's going to be lots of Tuesdays over the course of those years. Lots of them will be good, lots of them will be bad, and life will go on. So I think that's the first thing is I try to encourage them to zoom out a little bit, right?
Hmm.
Because if you think about what you said, and I've seen the same thing, by the way, with pre-approval requests, when the news headlines are good or the news headlines are bad, nothing actually changes. Like there's no real, it's not like when the news cycle is good, everybody gets a raise. It's not a
Right.
thing. Like nothing changes. Your bills are still your bills, your income's still your income, etc. So that's the first strategy that I think we lean into a lot, and I think it makes a big difference in people's lives. And then the other thing, and I know we've talked about it a bunch of times, but it just still becomes the best. It remains the best strategy out there is to put in an offer, ask the seller to pay money towards closing costs, use that money to pay
Hmm.
points to buy down that interest rate. I mean, I'm locking people in today's market at 5.625, five and a
Wow.
half on a 30-year fixed
That's almost a
because they're
point lower
structuring the
than it
offer
is.
right.
Yeah.
Yeah, and
Right.
you know, when I show people like offering 5 or 6 or 7% below asking price does a fraction of what it does to get 6% back towards closing costs and use that to buy down the rate.
Yeah.
So I think that continued education on that
Hmm.
from us to the agents to the consumers is going to be powerful. But I mean, probably 2/3 of my pipeline are the deals, the contracts are structured that way, and it's made a huge impact in buyers having the confidence to pull the trigger, being able to find something that they want with a payment they could afford, and get off the fence.
Yeah. So let's have a little coaching moment for our buyers agents. And maybe if a buyer happens to be watching this, they can learn a little something too. But let's have a little coaching moment for our buyers agents and talk about what script they need to be um, working on in terms of doing that rate buy down. How should they approach this with their buyers? How can they explain it? How can they explain it to the seller's agent if the seller's agent isn't totally aware of this benefit?
Yeah, look, I frankly think the best thing to do is for there to just be a partnership mentality. Jillian, here's what I see in most cases. When an agent is working with the buyer and the buyer says, I need a pre approval letter. Do you have a lender? They refer us. And I understand when rates are 2% and houses are $250,000, that works. I get that.
Hmm.
I think the better strategy now is to have like a strategy session with us, with the lender, where we can have this conversation. Like, bring us in 3, 6, 12 months before they're ready.
Hmm.
There are so many times that I was talking to a client recently, and the agent was lamenting to me about the buyer's situation. I said, just get me on the phone with them. And she said, Scott, there's no point. She said they're in a lease for 7 more months. There's no point. I go, just do me a favor. Allow me my request to waste my time then. Like, that's cool. Like, I'll
Yeah.
happily waste my time. I got on the phone with the guy. He, mentioned he had a lease for 7 more months. When I looked at the lease, I asked him to send it to me. The cancellation fee was $1,000. And he had almost $20,000 in rent payments left. And I said, hey, man, if I gave you two envelopes, one had $1,000 in it, one had $20,000 in it, you can only grab one. Which one would you grab? Like, silly question. But my point is, once that came to light, all of a sudden now he was under contract in 3 weeks and closed 3 weeks after that.
Wow.
So bringing us in early as a strategy, right? I'm waiting for rates to come down. Okay, we could do that today.
Hmm.
There's just, I'm waiting for down payments. There's options to look at that today. And I'm not by any means saying that everybody we talk to is ready to go,
Sure.
but 30% of them are. And the other 70%, now us and the agents are working together. We're tag teaming the client to help make sure all of their questions are answered and they're ready to go. I can't tell you how frequently I run through the numbers with the client and they go, I had no idea that's how it worked. So, I mean, as far as scripting and training, like coaching for the agents, bring us in way before. Like, don't just bring us in when somebody says I need a letter,
Yeah.
because at that
Right.
point they've made the decision to buy.
Right.
Allow us to help. be part of the discussion as to whether or not now is the right time to buy or not. And if it's not, we'll tell the clients and the
Yeah.
agents. But a good percentage of the time, that's not the case.
So as far as like a workflow goes for a buyer's agent, so you have someone that's interested in working with you. You begin talking to them about what the buying process looks like. Maybe you have your buyer consultation. And at that point, once you sort of get their articulated desires, for this sort of house in this area with these features, you can say, hey, let's see how we can make that happen with our partners here. And let's get on the phone. And like you said, how to have a strategy session. And that way, you can our agents can take the conceptual vision that the buyers have and really make it a little more concrete before you even show them a property, and that way they have a financial plan in place. And one thing that I really appreciate about what you guys do is that you do look at the whole person and their whole financial picture. You're not just shilling out pre-approvals. In those strategy sessions, you guys are really taking a look at the whole person and making sure that this is a payment that makes sense for them and for their families, and it makes sense for them long term. So I think that is a valuable use of an agent's time,
Yeah.
and it's the right thing to do for the buyer so that they can slow down and stop and really take a look at what it is that they can do. Because sometimes we get pigeonholed into going, well, this is what their pre-approval letter is for, and well, we can't, rates are this is the payment, and we never even go through they might see the property and then just get discouraged that it's not something that they could ever access, or they fall in love with the home and then they're calling you begging for you to make it work for them. And at that point, maybe they could have had access to several more homes that they would have enjoyed. And so I think the takeaway here is to bring you guys in a strategy session ahead of time. Because what are some of the, I know we just talked about rate buy downs. What are some of the other ways that you are helping people that maybe we haven't talked about yet?
Yeah, I mean, there are, there's a client I'm working with now where she is of retirement age. She has no income. She's living off her assets and she's afraid, but she wants to be near her recently born granddaughter.
Mm-hmm.
And she's kind of stressed about all the money. So with her, I ended up having a conversation with her and her financial advisor. And as a certified mortgage planner, like you said, like we look at things holistically. We don't
Mm-hmm.
just spit out, we don't tell people what they can do. We tell them what they should do.
Yeah.
And me and her and the financial advisor were able to come up with a game plan because she was scared of too much of a payment and she was scared of taking too much money out of her assets. And when a person's scared, they don't act. And if her motivation was something not as huge as I want to be near my grandbaby, I'm sure she wouldn't have done anything. But that motivation was big enough where when the agent encouraged her to get on the phone with me, she did.
Right.
And the three of us were able to work together and come up with a strategy where we were able to show her that, hey, with a 35% down payment, and we project this out, and we just did some long-term planning for her. Like we go through the whole thing, and she went, "Oh, whew, so I'm going to be okay." I go, "You're fine." I go, "As long as you don't start going crazy with your spending, like you should be able to live out the rest of your life very, very comfortably. And in 4 more years, Social Security will start, and it'll be this much, and it'll be even better." And we were just able to model these financial things, and again, and there's 100 variations to this because everybody's financials are different, but everybody is so afraid of tomorrow, but they don't know the questions to ask.
Hmm.
And it's easier on the real estate side in some respects because I need 3 bedrooms, I want 2 beds, but this whatever. With the money thing, it just scares people, so they just pull back. So
Mm-hmm.
we're able to bring up all of these different topics, and I talked to another client and I said, "What's holding you back?" And he said, "My kids are young. How, like, what happens when I have this payment and I have to pay for college?" And we ended up having these whole in-depth conversations about college savings plans and bright futures and all of these different things. And where we landed was if he bought a house that was about $50,000 less than he was originally looking at, he was ready to go and he was on the contract in 2 weeks.
Oh, there you
So
go.
it's just a matter of really unearthing their financial fears. More cases than not, Jillian, it's not based in fact. It's just based in fear. And
Hmm.
then once the facts are explained, it gives them peace of mind. And sometimes that peace of mind is cool. A year from now, let's do this. And that's great.
Hmm.
Other times it's like there's a house I've been watching on Zillow that I want to go see. So yeah, that's my thoughts on that.
That's great. And I think it's a good reminder for any agents that are listening to remember that we are not financial planners
Mm-hmm.
and we are not mortgage professionals. And it is not for us to say what someone can or cannot afford until a professional advises the client and that the buyer is able to tell you what it is that they can afford. And our job is to make the connections and educate as to all of the resources available to them that you can give them access to. And so I think the best thing we can do is understand the market to be able to advise and explain what's happening in the market and then point them to the right professional and help them schedule an appointment so they can get good information. So they can get, I always say, when you're education breeds confidence. And
Yeah.
so they just need more and better and more accurate information. And sometimes they have the information, they just need someone to say, yep, you're on the right track. You're doing great. You got this. Way to go. I'll help you get there. And I think that's something that you guys need to be a conversation that you need to be a part of, no doubt.
Yeah.
So, yeah.
For sure. Yeah. I mean, look, here's the reality. If a buyer is talking to an agent, they want to buy,
Yeah.
right?
Hmm.
There's some fear, there's something that they need to either figure out or overcome, or sometimes just accept it is, right?
Hmm.
I had a client that hit a $1.8 million tax lien. And I'm like, bro, until that gets worked out, you just can't buy a house. It's just very black and white. But nice though, the agent brought me in early. It would be better for me to tell him that then versus after she'd shown him 10, 12 houses.
Right.
It's wasted of her time as well as the client's time.
Right. Right. Well, this has been amazing, Scott. And I thank you for your time. And how can people get a hold of you?
The best thing to do is just call me directly. The website is teamfinancialquest.com. Edgardo and I and the team are on there, but if anybody wants to call me directly, they could do so at 239-910-6040.
Awesome. Well, Scott, we love having you as our partner here at Premiere Plus Realty, and our agents, if they haven't gotten to know you yet, they really should, so that that first call doesn't have to be, hey, can I schedule a strategy session right now? But it would be an agent that you have gotten to know. So I know that we have a lot of associates here, and really, it's true. You can say it a million times, but people don't always hear that we have this amazing partnership. And so I really want to stress that they really need to get on your calendar to just get to know you. They really need to understand all of the benefits that you provide, not only to the end customer, the buyers, but also to the agent as well, in terms of marketing, in terms of adding value to their business. So this is Scott. Edgardo may join us the next time. He's out of town this week. But thanks for listening, everyone, and onward and upward.
Thanks for having me. Take care.
Yeah, thanks.